Hesty here with a cheapo way to help improve the shifting on your Mark IV manual car. And really this is applicable to 01 to 05. It may work on the earlier models. As we know, on these old Mark IVs, there's a lot of plastic stuff that wears out, and that induces slop into your shifting. Now, in the shift box itself is a bunch of bushings to check. On top of the transmission, you have these guides, and then there's plastic sleeves that slide on these guide pins. Those are places to check too, but today we're just going to talk about these cable end links. So there's basically two styles in the Mark IVs. There's the snap-on style, like this, fits a ball mount. And then there's the pin style, which have a hole that goes all the way through. So the pin style fits on these pins, all right, on top of your transmission. This is some of the shift linkage on top of your transmission. Here's a Mark V shift linkage with the counterweight. Here's a, I'm sorry, I said Mark V, I meant 5-speed. This is a 5-speed shift counterweight and shift linkage. Here's a 6-speed. They're the same. The bushings, or the end links, are the same. They'll fit on either one. You release these, you'll see this little snap link. You have to lift there and push. Sometimes you got to use a screwdriver, slide that off out of the groove that it slides into, and then they pop right off. To release them off of the cable, so in your car right now, it'll be on a cable. You push this up and turn it. If you look real close in this one, you can see there's a little L shape in that notch. So we push that up and turn it, and it'll catch, and that will release it from the cable. You may have to open these up just a hair to wiggle that off the end of the cable. And then you can take it out of the car. These are sort of underneath your airbox battery tray. If you have an aftermarket air intake, they may be exposed and you can just see them pop in the hood. You will have to do a shift linkage adjustment when you put these back in. And I recommend watching the Diesel Geek video. They have an excellent video. I'll put the link in the description below. When you put it back in, you simply turn that and it snaps on, and that grabs onto your shift cable. Pretty simple. I clean them out real well, and then I fill them with an adhesive. Now this one's just done, so the adhesive is still curing. So step one, clean it out real well, and I usually use brake cleaner and a wire brush. And just scrub down in there the best you can. You can, when you pull it off, you'll see there's a lot of grit and nastiness in there. Clean it off, let it dry out, make sure that it's all dry so that the adhesive will adhere. Okay, there's several things you can use for adhesives. I particularly like this PL Marine from Loctite. It's very similar to 3M 5200, but it's a little bit more solid. It doesn't droop while it's curing as much as 5200 does. And it seems to put up pretty well, and it's a hair cheaper. 3M makes 5200. This stuff is fantastic. This is the Fast Cure 5200. If you're gonna get 5200, I recommend Fast Cure. Keep in mind, Fast Cure means about 24 hours, whereas the standard stuff is 36 to 48 hours. So when it says Fast Cure, that's not something you're gonna do in a day. You have to leave these off your car to get it to cure all the way. You do not wanna put these in and start using them before this is cured. This is excellent stuff. I highly recommend it. Very, very messy. You gotta wear gloves and have plenty of extra rags and maybe some Q-tips hanging around to clean up, because it strings and just gets everywhere. Kind of messy to work with. The other thing that happens is it droops very, very slowly as it's curing. So you may have to tape over these surfaces, because as it's sitting this way curing, it'll droop out. So you can do one side and then wait your 24 to 36 hours for it to cure, and then flip it and do the other side, or you can tape it off. There are tiny pass-throughs in there where it will droop through, But if you do one side and just let it droop through, and that cures, and then you do the other side, of course that first side will keep this side from drooping through, and whatever has drooped through and is hanging in here will be just fine. If you really want to make it look clean, oh, and by the way, this is available in black. They don't carry it at the big box stores, but you can find it on Amazon in black, which looks a little nicer in the engine bay. You may have some type, this happens to be Permatex, but whatever brand, some RTV sitting around, that will work too. Tends to not adhere as well to the plastic and rubber as the marine adhesives do, and those are called permanent. So they're a little bit heavier glue or adhesive action than RTV, but this can work too. And really, you're probably going to get 4 or 5 years out of this. So the difference in adhesive between an RTV and a marine adhesive probably isn't that significant. All right, so that's the materials I use. Then I use a small screwdriver. Of course, you can use the nozzle tip to shoot it into those holes as best you can. And then I use a small screwdriver to kind of pack it in there, paying attention to these. You can flex it over a little bit and shoot some down into that crack, and then flex it the other way, shoot some down into that crack, and then you can kind of smooth it back over. And then when I'm all done, I take a Q-tip and make sure that I don't have any adhesive inside this pin area or on the surface, because both of those need to slide smoothly. This is a plastic or nylon bushing in here that has little grease relief grooves, so when you put it back on, you could smear a little grease in there so it pivots nicely, gives you clean shifts, because it does need to be able, as you're shifting, the angle changes, right? So that needs to be able to rotate freely. And that's basically all there is to it. Just make sure it cures before you put it on, and that you don't have any adhesive in here that would cause binding when you slide it back on the pin. Now, remember that there are 2 different sizes. So this is one set here for one car, and you can see that those 2 holes are different sizes, so don't mix them up. All right, that obviously fits well on that one. This one is a little bit big, so that's not the correct one. And then at the same on your counterweight, right, the little one doesn't fit on there. That's the spot for this bigger one. Pay attention to that as you're assembling it, reassembling it. So this one's kind of extreme, but this is not that uncommon. This is actually completely broken loose in there. But if you throw some adhesive in there on both sides, that will be nice and firm, and it'll still give you good shifts. Save you a couple of bucks. This stuff is $6 or $7 for a small tube. You don't need much. This tube is way more than's needed. The 3M is a little more expensive. I believe this is closer to $10. And I'm talking about at the big box stores or Ace Hardware or wherever you get it. And Amazon's not a bad bet either. But if you can, buy local. Help out your local businesses. Then when you're all done, depending on how important it is to you, how well you clean it up, just make sure this surface is clear and there's no adhesive inside this hole. All right, and you can just clean it up with a Q-tip. And again, this stuff's very messy. I recommend gloves. Let that cure and you're ready to go. So here I'll show you where they are in the car. The air box is removed in this car, just at least so I can film. And you can see there's one connector and there's the other connector underneath the counterweight. This is a 99, an early 99 car. So you can see this one has one ball style and one eyelet style. So that one can be done. And actually this one is already done. And if you look, when I wiggle on it, there's virtually no slop between this shift arm and the cable end, right? So your cable comes through right here. So that one's pretty good. I like it. I like the way it came out. So that's where they are in the car. If you're standing in the front of the car, obviously your battery in the driver's front side, right? So you can reach down here behind the battery or beside the battery and get to these to pop them off. But the air cleaner, if you have the stock air cleaner, that will obscure your vision right here. And so this one is a little bit harder to get to. But again, the air cleaner isn't that hard. And if you have a cold air intake or some aftermarket filter on there, it may already be exposed for you. So that's what it looks like in the car. I will put some links down below in the description of where you can buy new ones. There are a couple of companies that offer new bushings, or you can buy this whole assembly. Don't be confused. There are a ton of different bushings in the shift kit. Another one to pay attention to is this guide, this slider. And obviously this one is broken. It should look more like that. And you can see that these are very gunky. Diesel Geek is one place that supplies all these bushings along with all the bushings that go in your shift box. Now, fixing your shift box, there's a couple bushings you can get from on top. I think it's the first gear getter is what they call the top bushing. You can replace that without having to remove the shift box from your car. But the bushings inside that shift box require dropping that shift box out of the car. But once you have these off, you can play with your cables and see how much slop is coming from different places. So figure out where your slop is coming from, but it's never going to hurt you to eliminate slop wherever you can get to. And I like this trick just because it's really easy. You don't have to take the car very far apart to get to these. You may have to take out your air cleaner, or if you have pretty good arms, you can reach underneath there and get them out. So, good luck with your project. I hope this helps you make your car a little more enjoyable to drive. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe.